To introduce my topic, I must begin with a warning. My subject area isn't typical teenage angst nor depression, but rather something much more compelling. Chocolate. Now, there is much more to this topic than most people assume. Most people don't realize that the manufacture of chocolate often involves child labor and even slavery. Today, I plan to address these issues and propose a solution. My father was raised by parents who rarely permitted him to have candy. Like most children, he would secretly rummage through the cupboards after school to find a treat. One day, he happened upon the baking chocolate and thought it looked tasty. So, he broke off a chunk and put it into his mouth. Instead of the highly anticipated flavor, his senses were overwhelmed by the strong bitter taste of roasted cacao. However, it looked like chocolate, and the label said chocolate, so he kept eating. Mothers seldom have to worry about their children eating the baking chocolate, because the taste is so repellent. Cocoa powder and baker's chocolate can sit in the pantry for years, as if invisible. For some reason, cooks enjoy taking inedible plants and making them palatable. Surely no one eats rhubarb or cranberries right off the plant, yet when cooked with lots and lots and lots of sugar, these plants can taste good. In the case of cacao, the beans need fermenting, drying, roasting, sugar, and fat to taste good. Being deprived of candy does something to you. Rather than learning a lesson from eating the bitter chocolate, my father went back for more. Each time, he would only take off a small amount, put it into his mouth, and grimace as he ate. The months passed by, and one day, the whole bar was gone. During this time, the flavor became less offensive, and my father almost developed a taste for it. Today, chocolate that is less than 65% pure cacao is unacceptable to him. He is a chocolate snob. In our house, we've tried chocolate from numerous countries around the world, like Peru, Belgium, Germany, Switzerland, and even places like Ecuador and Japan. It's amazing how many cultures have adopted chocolate into their cuisine. Each country has its own unique method of blending the ingredients together that results in very different products. We prefer Belgian chocolate, but I'm not a snob and would gladly take chocolate from anywhere. My father's interest in fine chocolate made me curious about its origins, so I researched. For most of its 5,000-year history, chocolate has been served only as a beverage. It was bitter and nothing like the hot cocoa we enjoy. The earliest civilizations in Mesoamerica first used the bean for spiritual ceremonies. In fact, the name of the tree on which the bean grows is called the Theobroma cacao tree, which means food of the gods. My father would agree. Early explorers to the Americas first brought the bean back to Europe, where it became very popular among the wealthy. Being somewhat rare, it was used as a commodity to trade for other goods. Since that time, chocolate has become much more affordable, and its popularity has spread around the world. Solid chocolate originated in England around 1847, when a cocoa grinder found a way to compress the powder with some sugar and some raw cacao to produce a solid bar. It had a coarse, gritty texture, but soon other manufacturers were copying the process and creating their own recipes. Nestle, a Swiss company, developed milk chocolate around 1870. They added powdered milk to the recipe to create a very popular flavor. Milton Hershey popularized chocolate in the Americas around 1900. He used it to coat ingredients such as caramel, although my dad, the chocolate snob, would insist that milk and caramel were impurities. Most people have no idea how chocolate is grown nor harvested. So today, I propose to enlighten you on the dark side of chocolate. The Theobroma cacao tree only grows in a narrow zone 20 degrees north or south of the equator. The trees are not very large and produce only about 40 hard-shelled pods each. Inside the pods are about 40 cacao beans. These beans are harvested, fermented, and then left out to dry. Next, they're taken to a facility where they are roasted and ground into a paste. At this point, the paste is called cocoa mass, and it contains cocoa butter and cocoa solids. Cocoa butter is a pale yellow and the main ingredient of true white chocolate, whereas cocoa solids contain much of the flavor we recognize. Blending cocoa butter, cocoa solids, and sugar in varying quantities results in dark chocolate. Now, the problem with the cultivation of the cacao bean is that it is done in some of the most impoverished areas around the world. Because of this extreme poverty, children are forced to work on the farms. As of 2017, over 2 million children were working on cacao farms. 2 million. The job is very dangerous, with injuries coming from machetes, falls, heavy lifting, and chemicals such as pesticides. These children are not there by choice and are often trafficked in as slaves. They can be as young as 7 years old. 7. Over 50 million people worldwide depend on cacao production as their only source of income. Farmers make only about 7% of the retail price of the finished chocolate products and struggle to meet the ever-increasing demand. Farmers, in fact, make only about $2,000 in US currency each year, which is only $40 per week. Thus, they resort to slavery and child labor and other practices which threaten the future sustainability of the industry. So, what is to be done? Well, only recently has the use of child labor been exposed to the world. In the year 2000, 2 documentaries were released which exposed the practice to a worldwide audience. And since that time, the use of slavery has gone down. But child labor still remains high. The only way to eliminate child labor completely is to pressure the growers. Many have promised to change, but it has been difficult to enforce. Really, it all boils down to costs. If growers were paid a fair price, they would be able to maintain their fields and pay a fair wage. This is true not only for cacao farmers, but also for growers of nuts, seeds, sugar, fresh fruits, and vegetables. The organization tasked with helping producers in these developing countries is Fair Trade International. This organization works to promote greater equity in trade and to educate the public. Maybe you have seen labels on fresh fruits and vegetables that indicate that they are produced according to fair trade guidelines. This means that farmers were paid a fair price and that no child nor slave labor was used. When growers join the Fair Trade Alliance, they are able to maintain their fields and pay a fair wage. Communities benefit by an increased standard of living, and consumers are able to experience the benefits of ethical purchasing, knowing that their money is not being used to promote organizations which promote child nor slave labor. Interestingly, very few of the large chocolate manufacturers are currently Fair Trade certified. I actually called several of them to find out. Hershey's promises to be 100% Fair Trade certified by this year. Ghirardelli, on the other hand, is not Fair Trade certified, and the representative that I talked to never returned my calls nor responded to my emails. The customer relations representative at Ferrero didn't even know what Fair Trade certification was. It's hard to imagine that poverty, slavery, and child labor still exist in the world today, while we live in such comparable luxury. Americans would never permit these practices to exist here at home. Fair Trade International helps us to see the inequities around the world and to boost the standards of living for everyone. So I challenge you that the next time you shop for imported goods, you look for the Fair Trade logo. Whether you like Hershey's chocolate, Belgian chocolate, or those hollow bunnies, it's important to consider the origin of the bean and to remember the dark side of chocolate. Thank you.